Welcome back, painters. All right, well, we've given our instant coffee some time to dry. So these initial washes that we did with value 1 are now dry. One thing I forgot to tell you is before you leave the session to let these dry, probably should cover your palette with that lid. That will protect these concentrated mixes that we've put together here from evaporating and changing in concentration level. So I also, between our session, drank all the coffee water in here. Just kidding. Dumped out that and added some fresh stuff. So start with a fresh change of water. And now we're going to come in and start to layer in our second value and our other values as well. So using watercolor and instant coffee, or even ink wash for that matter, all kind of work with the same sort of property, and that is, you want to layer consecutive washes to create the darker values. So remember we said the light was coming from the upper left-hand side. And now I'm adding in, this would be, the white would be our highlight, this would be our lightest value, like maybe our halftone, and then our next value up will end up being more of that core or body shadow. So now I'm kind of establishing a little bit more depth by applying that second value. Again, we can come back with toilet paper or our brush to absorb back some of those values as well. Rather than let this dry, if I were you, I would let yours dry, but I'm going to push on for the sake of our demonstration to our next value. Now, I'm going to leave this one as it is and just bring this value into here so we can see the stages from 0 to the next. You'll notice I can kind of tap that color in. It applies much better once it's dry. A wet on dry wash, a wet on dry paper applies much more evenly than a wet on wet. And you can always come back and layer back over. In fact, when we look at our values here, if we feel this one needed just a little bit more, we can come back and sort of just tap that in a little bit to darken that up. These tend to lighten somewhat when they dry. The darkest dark, you'll notice, has like a bright gloss to it. Again, let these dry in between. You have to be patient with watercolor or instant coffee. But finally, I would end up adding in our darkest dark, which is, the sludge. And I'm going to do that very carefully because this is still wet, but this would be that really deep shadow. And you'll notice as I was brushing, adding the direction, or adding the paint, the direction of my brush stroke became kind of an important part of what I was doing. I was sort of following the direction of that sphere. So that will change the circles into an actual sphere. You can also dab. And you have to decide whether you want sort of visible texture or you want it nice and smooth. I could come back and sort of rework these with a little bit of water and really smooth out my transitions if that's something that I desire. I tend to like my transitions to be kind of active. So I like to see where the water, wash dries and see the different shapes that it creates. I think that visible brush texture shows that it's a painting, and I think that's kind of interesting. But you'll notice the more I kind of come in here, I can smooth out those transitions if that's rather the look you want, is sort of a smooth gradation from dark to light. It's just a matter of you coming back and kind of working the pigment into the tooth of the paper a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to let these dry, but I will also come back and, as you can see, add in my cast shadows. And again, you would do the first value all the way through on each cast shadow. And the second one, you would bring that out just a little ways. Third, a little less, fourth, a little more. I will let this dry, and I will come back to deep in my darkest valley, because that's definitely not dark enough for me. And remember, the reason we're doing 5 values is, as you learned in foundations, 5 values is literally what you need to have successful dimension in a painting or drawing. You can have more than that, but you shouldn't have any less, okay? All right, you guys, happy painting.